All right, so we are doing the follow-up on the Canik or the Yanik or the Janik, because I've been told like 5 different ways how to say it, the TP9SFX. Because Canik's put out, or Yanik's put out a lot of good stuff recently between the compact, the TP9SFX, they've got that new meta out, there's a lot of stuff, but we are doing the several thousand round follow-up. I don't know exactly the round count on this, because it's my buddy's and he works at a range and seems to be at his favorite pastime is watching other people play with his toys. I guess he's into that kind of thing. So we're gonna do the follow-up on this thing, check it out, see how it's wearing in, and talk about one specific problem we've had, because as you can see, there's no longer an optic on this one, which if you watch the original video, which I'll link down below, has the optic, and I basically ran this thing kind of like a work rig. So I wanted to see how it was going to perform. So prior to doing that video and my buddy actually buying this thing and telling me I just had to try it, I had actually never heard of the Canik brand, or Janik, or however you want to say it. I'm just gonna say Canik from now on. So I'd never heard of it, and he was like, hey man, you've got to try this thing. It's got like the Walther style trigger and it's pretty good, which we are going to compare it to the Walther PDP, even though that one's got the Overwatch trigger in it. I'm gonna show you the similarities between the two triggers if you haven't seen that. Nevertheless, I was pretty impressed with how this thing performed out on the range and how it felt and all that good stuff. My only question was, knowing, you know, kind of this is imports, a little bit on the more budget side comparatively to other things that are kind of in the same designer class as this, how is the thing going to hold up? Well, now that we've got several thousand rounds through it and this thing's pretty much been passed around to everybody that I know to get a chance to play with it, we're gonna check into those things. So we're gonna go ahead and check and see how this thing is wearing right now. All right, the follow-up on the Canik TP9SFX. So the one that has been passed around, it's got several thousand rounds through it at this point, and it's a lot of fun. So if you want the full review, the original stuff with all the detailed specs, I'll link in the description. I will list the main specs over here, but this is a follow-up of how this thing is wearing in now that we've got a few thousand rounds through it, and just talking about this thing overall. It's fairly dirty because I swear my buddy gives it to me only when it needs cleaning to do a video on. So we're gonna go from the end you jam things in to the end that spits them out here, that's mag weld to muzzle, and talk about how this thing is wearing in. So my buddy did do some kind of self-stippling work in a couple of places, so it's gonna look a little different than the other TP9s you may see out there. But starting down there from the, actually let's start with the mags. So the mags are wearing in just fine, have not had any issues with them. Except for the fact, like I said, my buddy doesn't clean them and he's starting to show some rust in certain areas on these things. That and like dirt and rocks keep falling out of these mags. They're made by Metgar, so they are definitely good mags. So as far as the grip, a little bit better of an angle. You got a couple of these different back straps that come with it. You change them out by pounding out that pin, which again, you can see has a little bit of rust for me because my friend never cleans it, doesn't care about this thing, and just puts it away when he's done using it. So coming up from there, the grip is doing just fine. This has seen a lot of holster time, so it has a little bit of holster wear on it, and it's just got basic kind of marks everywhere around that you would expect to see on a gun that basically gets tossed around to pretty much everyone we know. The texture on it's pretty good. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more just all the way around that grip. You can kind of see it's got a very CZ-like texture to it. And then he did the stippling work on the side. Would have been nice to have a little bit more of kind of a grip texture, but it's still very controllable on the range. Now we'll come back to the trigger. Trigger guard is nice, gives plenty of room, even with bigger hands, to get around that thing. Pick rail, haven't had any problems there. I have to run this anytime I'm using my Blackhawk Omnivore holster. That holster attaches to the light, so I usually have a streamlight on here. Haven't had any issues with that at all. As far as the controls go, from the magazine release to the slide stop, they've got a couple different versions. You can have extended ones on there. Both great, both have not had any issues, and they are wearing in just fine. No problems with the coating or anything. Moving forward from there, you can see that the frame is just doing exactly as you would expect. Now let's go up into the slide. We do have one issue we're going to talk about here. We'll take that optics plate off, but I want to start off with the sights so you can see them right there. Rear sight is just blacked out, doing just fine, but that front sight has just taken an absolute beating. My friend has just destroyed that thing. Like the fiber optic thing is like bashed down in there. Needs to be like punched out and changed at this point. So one of the complaints that people had, they said the coatings came off on the TP9s a little bit quicker than some other stuff. The coating on this is doing great. And we'll talk about the barrel in a second because it's showing some pretty good wear. But as far as the coating here, like I said, this sees a decent amount of holster time, is doing just fine. There are a couple of areas like right here. I know it's tough to see. You can see that kind of shiny areas where it gets that kind of harsh wear on it. Because that's where it's making contact in there. So overall, everything is holding up exactly as you would expect when it comes to the coatings on it. So go ahead and break this thing down. Let's take the frame first and talk about how everything's wearing in here. Again, this thing is dirty. He gives it to me extremely dirty, and I am not cleaning it for him this time. So you can see those wear points on the rails. The coating's completely gone on the tops, and mostly gone on the sides of both rails. Again, the right side rear rail's taking a little bit more of a beating than the left side is. There's a little bit of a difference in wear there, but that's very, very common when it comes to striker pistols. We're going to talk about the trigger mechanism and compare it to a Walther here in a second once we do some trigger pulls. Coming forward into the locking block, you can see standard wear, and then again, the front rails coating's wearing off, but the rails look to be in good shape all the way around. There's no gouging, there's no excessive wear on that metal. It's everything you would expect. Only one weird thing is right there, right here in that area. You can kind of see that the plastic of the trigger housing group, or actually it's where the frame locks in, the housing group right there. Little bit of kind of gouging from the inside of the slide. And then of course the trigger bar, you can see it's showing where it makes contact, and then actually right here, again, my buddy doesn't take care of this thing right there. It's actually starting to rust because I don't think he's put oil on this thing ever. So that's how that is wearing in. Let's talk about the slide and the barrel. So recoil spring and guide rod, it's doing everything a recoil spring and guide rod should do. Now the barrel, and this thing is just nasty dirty, you can see the barrel is showing a pretty good amount of wear, a little bit off kilter up there in the hood, a little bit so in the rear here on the sides of the barrel. Pretty good scar right there from the guide rod assembly. And then on this side, you see that typical wear. Now the feed ramps and everything are doing just fine. Again, my buddy, it's just, this thing is extremely dirty, and I swear to God, I wasn't cleaning it for him once again. Typical wear, that little smiley face you get on the barrel, all the way around the bottom like that, and then everything else in here is doing just fine. That's pretty much what we would expect out of something. Taking a good look at the inside of the slide, you can see the typical wear points. Nothing's going on here that we wouldn't expect. You know, you get a little bit of shine kind of up in here where those rails and the trigger bar and everything are making that good contact up in there. So everything is doing good. So I'm going to put this thing back together, and I'm going to jump forward because I'm going to take off the optic plate, and we're going to talk about the problem that's going on there, and then we are going to do those trigger pulls. So jump forward real quick. All right, so we took the optic plate off so we could talk about the issue here. If you look down on this side, you're going to see that kind of shiny silver insert. Try and get you the best light right there. So that's actually called a helicoil. So those are threaded down into the slide, and that's what the plates and the optics actually screw into. One on the left side had a problem. It fractured out, it actually cracked. So my understanding is I think you have to order those directly from Canik. So my buddy's a little mad right now because he's waiting on them. Apparently it's a fairly common issue, but not a huge issue because it's a fairly cheap and easy fix. So is what it is. That is the one problem that the Canik has given him. Let's talk about that trigger, and we're gonna compare this to the Walther PDP trigger because it's pretty much a clone. Good tactile engagement, good hard wall, nice solid brake, good short reset, and a brake. So now this got a couple thousand rounds through it, we are going to do some pulls. I'm gonna try to keep this in the exact same spot every time while I do this, because people like to say, get on that trigger shoe, that I'm doing it wrong or something like that. So we are sub 4 pounds, just over 3.5, right around that 3 pounds and probably 9-10 ounce mark, something like that. Don't have a digital gauge, so we'll do 3 pulls on this and then we will move on, try and get on the same spot here. All right, very consistent right there, same spot, just at 3.5 pounds, looking good. The trigger does clean up a little bit, but it was really good out of the box from what my buddy said. Like I said, this is his, so he had it first. Do our last pull here. Very, very consistent right there. So actually, let's compare this just quickly to the Walther PDP trigger because it's pretty much a clone. Yeah, I do have the Overwatch trigger in here. The thing is sick, but we're gonna check this out side by side here, and you are going to see some extreme similarities in the trigger bar right there, okay, between the two. And then look at the springs right there. Get my little pointer tool here. The springs and then the disconnector and everything that's going on in here, extremely familiar, right? Because it's pretty much a clone, which I might try to see if I can stick this in here and see what happens. You know, typical guy sticking things where they don't belong, right? Review on that trigger coming soon. If you guys are curious, I keep getting asked about this little Glock tool. I'll put a link for that down in the description so you can check it out. All right, so now that you've seen all of that stuff, let's talk price and if this is still a good value, knowing everything we know now. All right, so now that you've had a good chance to see how it's wearing in, talked about that one problem with that helicoil and the slide on that mounting system, let's talk about the positives and the negatives. Really the only negative that I see here, besides the fact that my friend gives me a horrifically dirty gun to clean for him every time I get to see it, was that helicoil. That's the only problem he's had or that anybody else has experienced. It's run every type of ammo. I know early on, I think they were giving out like different recoil springs because it wasn't cycling some of the lower power ammo. That one has run everything from basic cheap white box ammunition through frangible ammunition through self-defense ammo and everything, reloads, everything in between with everybody that's had their hands on it. So the performance has been good, just that one problem. So knowing kind of what we know now about that thing, let's talk about the cost of this for how it comes. All right, so the cost on this Canik, the TP9SFX, with the stuff that you saw it come in at, the MSRP I think was like $545 or $550. I've seen it right around $5 sometimes, but generally I think right now after checking it was like $525 in a couple places. Not bad at all, especially for an optics ready pistol and what you are getting out of this and how it performs, especially with that trigger, which is very, very solid because it's basically a carbon copy of the Walther trigger, which we all know is very good. So overall in that category, that's a pretty exceptional value for what you're getting, how many rounds you can put through it, how it's wearing in. Like I said, one little problem with that mounting system, and that I guess is fairly well known. So other than that, it is a solid rig. If you guys are into one, always test drive these things if you get the opportunity. Get out there, rent one, find a buddy with one so you can try it. In fact, I think I'm tired of borrowing his. I might have to actually go buy maybe the new Meta or something like that, since this one's a little bit older now. Get that newer model, right? Get the one with the leather seats on it, because that one's got all kinds of good stuff. So that is what I've got for you guys today. Make sure you get subbed up, get belled up, turn the notifications down there to all on. If you guys are interested in supporting the channel, you can check out any of those affiliate links either here, down below, or over at my website. That's how the channel stays alive. Really appreciate that support. Huge shout out to all of my Patreons, of course. Lives will be kicking back up for you guys real soon after everything that's kind of changed and gone on around here. Get that rolling for you. And let me know in the comments, do you guys like seeing, the follow-up videos on these things to kind of see how they're wearing in, especially once they get well over 1,000, or in some cases with the rifles, like well over 5,000. I really want to know if you guys enjoy seeing that stuff and the amount of detail that I try to go into to show you how they're going to wear. Let me know in the comments, guys. I appreciate it. Remember, get out there on the range, have some fun. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.